Morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. G20 comes to a conclusion and India assumes nominated today officially from 1st of December the presidentship of G20. It continued its deliberations in Bali, but what the meaningful, very high sounding phrases and the words are used. But ultimately, till today, whether this United Nations, whether this multilateral organization like G7, G20, and so on, the world leaders meet, talk to each other, profess utmost sincerity to the people, to the progress, to the prosperity, and end results remain the same. Same chaos, same disease, same hunger, same lawlessness. Is G20 a multilateral organization of 19 countries and European Union combined? Now this is amazing, 19 countries and European Union. So Germany is a member in two ways. One, as a member of EU, one as a France. Same is about France. Same is about Germany. Same is about other countries. But anyway, these 20 countries, 19 countries plus EU, represent 85% of the global GDP. They represent 66% of the world population. Formed in 1999, when there was Asian financial crisis. It got a lot of importance in 2008 when G20 leaders summit was added to the list of the challenges posed by the global financial crisis. It was designed to be a flexible body. There is no permanent secretariat. Decisions are based on consensus, which is always there in talk, never in implementation. And it did help at that time in mitigating the economic fallout in 2009. After that, it is in a state of suspended animation. Nothing much is done. Now, India has gotten a golden opportunity. And the opportunity is to get G20 back on its track. It's really an important platform, as I said. 20 major countries, 85% of the global GDP. So it should not be allowed to sink in irrelevance like other global governance bodies. And it needs a permanent secretariat. India should ensure for 1 year, when it's going to be the president, to have an appropriate agenda that can be realized with concrete measures. And given the last decade's failure from 2009 to 10, to 20 and 22, we have seen that ever-expanding agenda is there and never any achievement. Then there's a long-term implication of the strategic rivalry between US and China on one hand, and India and China on the other. Would that rivalry not interfere with the agenda? And the G20 leaders in Bali had a great finale of Indonesian year-long presidency. The baton passed on to India. And if I look at it, in 2008, non-European countries have been there. Mexico was their president in 2012, China in 2016, Argentina in 2018, Indonesia in 22, and now India. So it's the fifth time that a developing country is the person and the country at the helm of affairs. But then this is not only a moment for the global south to try and set the force to change the global outlook. You see, the The main objective of Bali conference was great. Recover together, recover stronger. Recover from where? From Ukraine war, from COVID-19, from the Great Depression, from the inflation. And if I look at the totality, people talked of all things, as I said, high words, but there was nothing concrete. I didn't find anything which seeks greater economic convergence on sustainable development goals. And Modi was very right in pointing out the growing relevance of G20 that nobody can deny. And he also referred to the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine as the major disruptors. But the post-COVID period has been a failure of the global community to reform multilateral institutions like UNO. And that's why there's a lack of global consensus. So G20 can be a sort of a mini UNO, but more powerful because it's 85% of the global GDP. Now Modi was very cautious in his talk. He didn't want to hurt Biden, he didn't want word Z. And this sort of approach is never successful. The world is deeply divided. And this provides an India to be the peacemaker. I know it's difficult. The developing countries are suffering the consequences of food scarcity, energy, fertilizer scarcity. And the primary concerns of the developing world relate to the custodian issues. Who cares about the Ukraine war? A hungry person, a diseased person doesn't care whether Russia has invaded Japan, Ukraine or not. Who cares? The politicians care. Really speaking, all the millions of the people who are deprived and do not have 2 meals a day, would they bother whether Ukraine is conquered or not? Or whether even there's a nuclear bomb thrown? They would not. We have to be realistic. So, the main thing has to be to uplift the values of life and economic condition. And this G20 presidentship provides an opportunity to India to assume the mantle of a peacemaker. UN lacks credibility. Major powers in USA and Europe have taken sides in the proxy war in Ukraine. China remains a vicarious supporter of Russia. So it's only India which has taken a very objective view, and it can play a major role. And I was impressed by Modi's address, at least as the talk is concerned. But let's not forget that as early as in 2018, there was an excellent proposal by India which nobody has talked about. Can you believe it? In 2018, India proposed 2023, the coming year, as the International Year of Millets because of the food shortage. This was approved by Food and Agriculture Organization and then by UN General Assembly. And India is the largest producer of millets in the world. It produces 14.52 million tons. That was in, I think, 2015. And now it produces 17.96 million tons. That's almost 18 million tons. So, this celebration can be converted into reality in the food of the millions and the billions of the people. The population has reached 8 billion now, the world population. So with the 8 billion population, if you have got 18 million tons of millets every year from India alone, and there are about 7 other countries which produce millet, the whole hunger problem can be solved. Such an initiative by India would dovetail with G20 Malta Declaration, which related to the question of poverty alleviation, food security, sustainable food development. So the prolonged scarcity of food grains, aggravated by droughts and the floods, results in the shortage of livestock as well. So they have to come down from the geopolitical level to the realistic level of providing food, Medicare, clothing, housing. The program of ongoing G20 summit includes a visit to mangroves. Now that again is an important thing. But biodiversity is important. And the coastal erosion acting as carbon sinks, these mangroves. So that has to be given concession. Just visiting mangrove by the 20 leaders and the 200 lackeys doesn't help anything. Then you cannot ignore that electricity needs renewable, but coal was and is and will continue to be the main fuel for energy generation. So much so that Germany has started reopening coal-fired power plants. 18 months back, Germany could not even have thought of it, but now the energy crisis is there. You can't let people die of energy starvation, as you cannot let people die of food starvation. The global community must realize that India's continued use of coal is important because India, Russia, and other China, they need to cater to billions of people. And is coal the only polluting fossil fuel? No. Even natural gas is polluting. So we have got to wake up and be realistic. If you really want to strengthen G20, and that should be done, then the commitment to provide $100 billion to the annual work is a drop in ocean. That is, a token effort by G20. They should do it that the energy transition should only be done by who can afford it. And let our people go as they are. Things would change. It's time for the developed world to move from merely demanding energy transition in a time-bound manner, like Canada is doing now, but they are not taking any concrete steps to extend the financial help to the developing nations. Now let's not forget, any organization works best when it maintains or makes an enabling global economic environment. And that is what India, as the president now, starting from 1st of August, to do. So what should be in the agenda? First should be the global health architecture. Strengthen global health resilience and make the global health system inclusive, equitable, responsive. Second, digital transformation referred to by Modi. So you have got to use rapid digitalization and global economy by creating a new landscape. Then sustainable energy. I don't say renewable energy, I don't say natural energy. I would say sustainable energy in whatever form is required. Then what else at stake? If you see the recent report of IMF on G20 countries, that these countries have suffered significant losses since the start of COVID-19. That means 85% of the global GDP is suffering. So that has to be addressed too. And worst is inflation. The galloping inflation, stagflation rather, has to be controlled. G20 hasn't talked about it. Talking around the things and talking about the specific needs is what's required. Then Russia's invasion of Ukraine has created a massive geopolitical uncertainty. But it has also spiked global inflation thanks to the bottlenecks in supply system, curbs across, and then the sanctions. The concept of the sanctions being imposed should be made criminal. And G20 should take a decision under India's presidency that this would not be acceptable. The central banks across the countries have been raising interest rates. What happens to the people who can't afford the housing? China, one of the major engines of global growth, is witnessing a sharp slowdown. India is possibly the only country. So, coupled with the presidentship of the G20 and India's sustained economic growth would be helped. So, the global prospects need to improve. And two things are certain. One is the G20s can grow together if they grow faster, but they can grow faster if they grow together. Second, such growth needs peace. And given the scope of G20 countries, this is an opportunity for the leaders to find common ground. Common ground is not because of the you wear the same sort of the trendy shirts which all the leaders were wearing. That is ridiculous. According to IMF, the overarching priority of the policymakers in most economies is to ensure price stability. That should have been addressed. It has not been. It should bring down the debt level and protect the most vulnerable, what have been doing. So what can be done is that the G20 leaders need to push to more open, more stable, and transparent rule-based trade. That will help address the global shortage of food, whether it's food and medicine and clothing. G20 has to strengthen the resilience of the global value chains, not only for the present, but to protect against the future shocks. And what G20 should aim at, and it should be Modi's prime objective, a durable recovery under the aegis of a multilateral action directed and controlled by G20 on climate, debt, nobody talks about it, taxation, and pandemic preparedness. You shouldn't be caught napping the way you were at the time of COVID-19. So preparedness is a must, and we don't care for that. That's the most important thing that has to be done. Would we wake up ever? I hope so. I only hope it doesn't remain as pious hope. And the G20 leaders, and now with Modi being at the head, India being at the head, the technological progress of India, the innovativeness of India can help and enable the world turn a new leaf in global cooperation for the good of the people at the lowest level, the vulnerable society. Is it asking too much? Think about it. Thank you. Hi.